The 5.56mm never got the chance to sing in the halls of the Kremlin, but it was the round that destroyed an empire.
Well, the old debate, Ford or Chevy, 7.62 or 5.56. Let's go.
A common debate among veterans and gun enthusiasts revolves around why the United States chose to implement the 5.56mm NATO round into service instead of the 7.62mm. Size, versatility, lethality, and a plethora of other semantics are usually quoted in bars across the nation. The answer to this question does not lie in the science between these two instruments of war.
Well, he's right. There is a lot of debate. And you see, we've been on 5.56 since Vietnam. We're heading towards 7.62 again. We were at 7.62, 30-06, I should say, World War II. And now we're going back to a heavier round. So you got to ask yourself the question, is there a reason? Is it just evolution, trial and error? Let me know your favorite round in the comments, 7.62 or 5.56.
But in the politics of the world stage. Behind closed doors, world leaders are not as concerned with the penetration of a round or the distance between troops and their targets, but whether they have enough weaponry in their depots, enough money in their treasuries, and the commitment of their allies to come to their aid. Immediately after World War II, tensions began to rise between the East and West over liberated territories and how they would be governed. An arms race of atomic proportions had begun. War-torn Europe faced the problem of depleted weapon stores and the financial inability to repulse the expansion of Soviet communism. In the wake of World War II, the United States of America commanded over 30,000 overseas bases, marshaled over half of the world's manufacturing capacity, and owned two-thirds of the world's gold stock. In 1949, the Greatest Generation proposed a strategic solution, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.
You know, I sit here and think about what round works best, and I guess it's Ford or Chevy debate. But you got to ask yourself the question, is there an advantage to having the same round as your enemy? So if you take their rounds to caches, you can use it. Or an interchangeable weapon that can use 7.62 by 39 or 5.56. Or does that make any difference? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that idea.
The M16 style rifle chambered in 5.56 by 45mm has become ubiquitous in imagery of the US military, but that wasn't always the case. America's adoption of the 5.56mm round and the service rifle that fires it both came about as recently as the 1960s, as the US and its allies set about looking for a more reliable, accurate, and lighter general-issue weapon and cartridge. Back in the early 1950s, the fledgling North Atlantic Treaty Organization set about looking for a single rifle cartridge that could be adopted throughout the alliance.
The idea there makes a lot of sense, right? A buyer's club, so all our NATO allies can buy the same ammunition. It's interchangeable, but we get some economies of scale, right? So that idea makes a lot of sense with our allies, whether it's 7.62 or 5.56. I guess the hard part is getting people to agree in the future.
In the group. Despite some concerns about recoil, the 7.62 by 51mm NATO round was adopted in 1954, thanks largely to America's belief that it was the best choice available. The 7.62 by 51mm cartridge, which is more similar to the .308 than the 7.62 by 39mm rounds used in Soviet AKs, actually remains in use today thanks to its stopping power and effective range, but it wasn't long before even the 7.62's biggest champions in the US began to recognize its shortcomings. These rounds were powerful and accurate, but they were also heavy, expensive, and created a great deal of recoil.
Well, check out the description. I got some information about the new 7.62 service rifle that's being issued in the Army and the Marine Corps. So you got to ask yourself the question, was our original thinking flawed? Have times changed? Are we changing for the desert wars and urban combat? Does it make any sense? Has technology gotten better so the recoil's less?
As early as 1957, early development began on a new, small-caliber, high-velocity round and rifle platform. These new cartridges would be based on the much smaller and lighter .22 caliber round, but despite the smaller projectile, U.S. specifications also required that it maintained supersonic speed beyond 500 yards and could penetrate a standard-issue ballistic helmet at that same distance. What the US military asked for wasn't possible with existing cartridges, so plans for new ammo and a new rifle were quickly drawn up.
Now the conspiracy crowd's going to say, well, it's the military-industrial complex. It very well may be, but the concept of a buyer's club makes sense. And we did see the Japanese have a lot of success with smaller rounds in World War II. I always thought that was the reason why we went to a smaller round, was because we saw that our enemies were having success, and wounding somebody was as effective or more effective than killing them. It takes more people to take care of them. Let me know your thoughts on that one, because that is a real debate.
NATO was created in response to failing relations between the US and the Soviet Union, especially in the case of the reconstruction of Germany. Under the persuasive guidance of the United States, NATO slowly standardized armaments best suited for American designs than those resembling the Soviet 7.62 mm. Who else could argue the case to finance, produce, and export on a scale to rival the Russians?
Now, for you guys that are military weapons experts in the audience, what was the real driving force to change rounds? Was it recoil? Was it how many rounds you could carry? What was the driving force? I've heard several different things, and I cannot find a definitive answer.
In the 1980s, the 5.56 by 45 mm was adopted as the standard. From the sands of the Middle East to the deep jungles of South America, the 5.56 mm played an integral role in shaping modern warfare. Decades of proxy wars and economic downturn brought the Soviet Union to its knees. Mikhail Gorbachev, president and leader of the Soviet Union, resigned and declared his office extinct on December 25, 1991. The 5.56 mm never got the chance to sing in the halls of the Kremlin, but it was the round that destroyed an empire. Currently, the United States stands as one of the top weapons suppliers around the world. Its sales include, but are not limited to.
Now, you think about the AK-74, smaller round. Why did they go to it? Was it because you can get more bullets on one infantryman? Was it because they found the 7.62 by 39 wasn't as accurate? There's a lot of speculation on the interwebs, and I cannot find the definitive answer, but I want to hear your opinion. Do you think, again, the small round's the key? Because we are going, in the United States and NATO, to a larger round back to the 7.62 by 51.
Enough for one more fire.